Afternoon, Manchester United fans. How much money can Manchester United spend in the summer? And is this the first summer in a long time where the players leaving Manchester United are actually going to bring in some decent money? So we've got four people on the screen. You could maybe add Xerxes to this list as well. If you believe rumours, you could look at maybe potentially other players leaving, but these are the players that are almost certainly going to be gone from Manchester United in the summer. And if we're looking at this, to start with, we can look at how much money this is going to bring in. We know that already Rasmus Højlund is a done deal. So Rasmus Højlund will be going to Napoli. There's an obligation to buy him for £38 million. That's going to be the biggest chunk so far. And if you're looking at the rest of these players, there is some information as well regarding Marcus Rashford. Is that Hansi Flick has told the club that he wants to keep Rashford beyond this season. That's going to be about £26 million. So that makes up the bulk of it. That's going to be 64 million combined. And Hansi Flick is satisfied with Rashford's performance. There was some talk about Gordon going to Barcelona, but I guess that's going to be like financially that would be much more expensive than Marcus Rashford. Keeping Rashford, I know Rashford's got a big salary, but I think he might be reducing that as well to get the deal done. So I think whatever Marcus Rashford's getting paid at Manchester United, he'll earn less in Spain, but the tax system there means that he will get to keep a bit more as a percentage. So that's going to be a done deal. So the top row is probably almost like it's definitely done for Højlund. It's close to being done for Marcus Rashford. Trabzonspor do want to keep Anana, which would be roughly about 20 million, I think, is what Manchester United would like. Agate is available for about 20 million as well. So that feels like that would definitely get done. I'm not sure exactly where it goes, but there's rumours that there's teams in Italy interested, and there also might be teams in Turkey interested as well. You could factor in as well that my gut feeling is that I think we're going to see Xerxes move in the summer, and there's going to be at least a couple of teams in Serie A interested. The price estimation for someone like Xerxes might be about 30, 35 as a starting point, and he is quite highly regarded in Serie A. He did well in Italy before he joined the Premier League, so there's no doubt that he would be available for that sort of money. And that would actually take the figure up to closer to 140 million. So 104, at least 100 million coming in. This is something which I don't think this ever happens I don't think this normally happens, and I don't think we ever have a situation where we go into a transfer window actually raising money. So if you can think of any things last season, but last season actually, Rasmus, you can look at the thumbnail and the image on screen. Last season we loaned out Rashford, we loaned out Rasmus, we loaned out Anana, so we effectively got no money coming in from to our club. You could also factor in that United might get a few million for Bindier, but I think that's a done deal. But that's not going to bring in a lot of money. So overall, when you look at it, the situation of like
That's a
if
done
we
deal.
assume
That's
Manchester
not
United were going to spend say about 200 to 250 million, that's kind of what we expect. A normal transfer window for Manchester United, they normally spend about 200 million to 250. I think last season we spent roughly about like what 230. I think if you consider that all the signings we made, and if you add 100 million on top of that, I think it would be surprising. Like Man United can spend at least 300 million. Will they spend 300 million? Do they need to spend 300 million? Is maybe a different situation. In the run, I just saw this comment saying United will make a 5 million loss on Højlund. Say the savings will be less, or will be on the amortization. I think when you're looking at this, that Man United they're looking to sell Onana for 20 million, Agate for 20 million. So you could maybe factor in also in terms of like profit loss as well. If you want to look at the accounting side of it, then Marcus Rashford, an academy player, so that does actually count as like straight profit as well. So that would be potentially helping it. But if you're looking at these, that I know every time Manchester United buy a football player, we will pay in instalments. When we sell a football player, we will sell and we will get sometimes the money in instalments as well. So I think in terms of this is for me the first time I've actually seen significant players leaving the club for money. That we saw Paul Pogba left on a free, Jesse Lingard leaves on a free, Sanchez going to be leaving on a free, and I think the list goes on that Man United have been quite poor when it comes to selling players. That's something that needs to significantly change, and hopefully we're seeing this is the kind of the start. Maybe this is going to be the first summer where the players leaving the club actually benefits Manchester United by bringing in decent money. So again, I think Agate and Xerxes would be two quite recent signings. And actually, even Onana was signed um, fairly recently, I suppose, in terms of this one. But Rasmus Højlund, Agathe, Xerxes, these are players that have been bought in the last couple of years. They haven't really worked out, and Manchester United are going to sell them. You could argue they make a very small loss on Rasmus. They probably make actually after a couple of years, I don't think they're necessarily going to make a loss on Agate, and I don't think that they're not going to make a loss on Xerxes. So, in terms of like, if you get a bad deal in the club, and then you move these players on quite quickly. If you're not losing significant money, this happens at every club, doesn't it? If you sign a player and it doesn't work out, you're expecting to make a loss, and no, they will make a loss because we overpaid a bit for Rasmus. The fact we probably overpaid a little bit for Agate, I think Xerxes we don't make a loss, and I think we overpaid for Onana. That I don't imagine that if you have people like Dorgu now, and you look at some of the other signings we've made recently, I don't think Manchester United makes a financial loss. You could probably look at Chelsea and say, like Garnacho, that will not be a profitable sale. Elanga for 60 million, that will not be profitable. So I think United are moving in the right direction. But this is why I think there could potentially be a bit more excitement in the transfer window. There could be a bit more money coming in. And I'll just go through some of the comments now still. So big thanks to people that got in early as well. So if you want to post some comments now, I'll go through a few of them and say Xerxes you think will go, and I think Mount will go out on loan. I think Mason Mount will almost certainly be surplus to requirements next season, and that's why I think that if you look at some of the players, Mason Mount, if he's not going to play many games for Manchester United, it makes a lot of sense to loan him out because then that takes the salary off the books, and effectively that's another what probably about £1 million per month. If you're looking at about 200, 250k, so potentially a Mason Mount loan will bring in 12 million, and effectively Mason Mount's salary could pay for Elliot Anderson's salary. If you put Elliot Anderson on that sort of salary, which I'd imagine you're probably looking at 200 to 250 as a being a kind of like where he'd fit into our wage structure. I think that would kind of make sense. And if you look at some of these signings, like Agate's not going to be getting paid loads. Anana and Rasmus are not getting paid loads, but Marcus Rashford's salary off the books as well. That would, cover any signing we make in terms of salary. So I think this is potentially going to bring in decent money. You could take Anana off the list and say if we loaned out Anana, loaned out Mason Mount, and sold Agate and sold Xerxes, we make slightly more money as well. So let me jump into the comments and see what people are saying. Yeah, we covered Arsenal extensively last night. Fair play, Arsenal won the title, but I think we need to focus on Man United rebuilding and trying to compete. And say Collier might go for 10 million. So in terms of like loans, I don't think there's anybody else on loan that would get sold as well. So I don't know. It depends on this one. So let me jump into some of the recent comments as well. So as always, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. YouTube does not send notifications to everybody as well. That's just a recent thing. YouTube does not send notifications to everyone that subscribes. A lot of time it's a bit hit and miss. But if you're in the Discord, then we will post that as and when we can find that as well. And say Agate making the World Cup squad. Now, international football is a lot slower. Well, I think international football, if you're looking at a comparison, when some of the players played in European football, say the Champions League, the Europa League, and representing their country as well, I think that the speed is a little bit slower. So the fact that Agate can play well for his country is that the Premier League is just quicker. The Premier League's quicker, it's more physical, and it's not as easy for some players. For more technical players, they might actually shine in a different league. But if you don't operate particularly well under pressure, and if you find the physical battles tough as well, then the Premier League is going to be a bit unforgiving. So yeah, Agate is just another player in a long list of players that have not really suited the Premier League, and yeah, he gets sold. He gets sold on. To be honest, I think we could be. So, do we overpay or undersell? I think, and look in terms of like recent years, I think Manchester United have probably overpaid for a few players, and it's then difficult to move them on. So if you look at the players on the screen, I think Rasmus Højlund, Agate, and Onana were all too expensive. If you consider it, then Rasmus Højlund, I think he cost more than Cunha, not as good. Onana cost more than Lamans, not as good. We could buy Hayden Hackney instead of Agate, and he would have been a more effective player. I did see a couple of people talking about Thwaites in the academy saying that he's kind of a similar level to Agate already. So I don't know if that's just been a bit what's the word? I don't know if they're overhyping Thwaites or whether he's considered that he's going to be closer to the first team than people realise. That's what's been put out there by people that watch the academy. So we'll have to see if that's the case. But potentially, potentially we might see a couple of people stepping up from the academy. I say Garnacho is pure profit. For us, Garnacho is pure profit. For Chelsea, it's a poor decision. So, no, in terms of that one, I think in the end we probably won that deal versus Chelsea, didn't we? We got that one in. Big up to you, Jordan. And say I agree. Our squad's small. I think the way I look at it is that if you're looking at Manchester United now, the players on the screen that are being sold, they're very rarely like Agate's featured kind of on the periphery of the team recently. He's pretty much frozen out under Michael Carrick, and the other players were loaned out. So most of the players being sold have effectively already not been part of our team this season, have they? So they've been players that are on loan. And the only other players I think are going to go is like Malacia, I think his contract expires. And I think Sanchez's contract expires as well. So these players are going to be off the books. So that's going to be, I have no idea what Malacia gets paid. I think it's like 70 or 80K or something like that. So those contracts are off the books, and maybe Mason Mount gets loaned out. But I don't see a lot of other exits apart from what we're talking about. So it's going to be the only players in the first team this season that get sold. I think are going to be like Binder was featured in the first team at the start. I think Agati and Xerxes, but I think that Xerxes brings in actually quite decent money, and I think Xerxes will be. Roughly, we paid £35 million for him, roughly, I think, and I think we will get the same sort of money back from him. There may have been add-ons in that deal, but I'm pretty sure they haven't been, they haven't been um, ticked off. Orozco was one that we signed. Think was it last summer that we went under the radar a little bit. He was quite cheap as well. So there are going to be a few players gradually making their way to the first team, like maybe Orozco, potentially Leon in another year or two. But you might see those players eventually. You might see some of those players actually get sold. They might not all make it to the first team. It's going to be getting more difficult as well. No, this is something that, to be honest, like Manchester United have been incredibly poor at raising money by selling players. Something that Manchester City, like Liverpool, even like Arsenal and Chelsea have been quite good at selling players through the academy and selling players on for like 15, 20 million. And where Man United have been probably, I think we've been really bad at selling academy players. The only one recently that someone highlighted, like Danny in the comments, got in was that when we sold Greenwood, we sold him for 25 million, but we put in an enormous sell-on clause of about 50 to 60%. So in terms of like sell-on clauses, that is enormous. Normally it's like 5 to 10%. It's not normally close to that amount. So if Greenwood does move for big money, that effectively will bring in about as much money as selling Agate. So it'll be that sort of level. So if you consider Agate maybe going for 20, 25 million, um, Greenwood being sold to a different club for a decent figure could bring in that sort of money again. So we could be talking about essentially, not exaggerating, but we could be talking about £150 million of sales and money coming into the club added to the transfer budget. So if Man United said we could spend 200 million, it's not a stretch to say we could spend at least 300 if we wanted to. And that would be the same as spending 200 million a year before because we're finally actually going to get some money coming into the club. So hopefully that will happen. And it might mean that when we look at some of the targets in a second, we can see where the money could be going. So let me go through a few of the comments as well. Lots of people saying hello. So welcome, welcome people to the chat as well. I think Barcelona are going to shut up and pay. It seems that Hansi Flick is going to be doing that one as well. So we all have, we owe money on players, but I think every club owes players. And so you owe Adidas. I don't think we don't owe Adidas. We just get 10 million less from that one. So in terms of this, if you want to talk about money coming into the club, Manchester United will get about 130, 140 million pounds from finishing third in the Premier League. The Champions League run is going to be roughly worth about 90 million. So it's going to be pretty decent. So Rasmus Højlund, I think you need to convert the 44 million into that's euros, so it's about 38 million pounds. It's 64 million pounds from Marcus Rashford and Hoyland, so that's a guaranteed money coming into the club. So that's pretty good. How good it would be? Well, it wouldn't be particularly good because it would mean that Man City won the league, Jay. So unless you can find a reason to get rid of Man City and Arsenal, then yeah, we're kind of in business then, aren't we? Who am I blaming for our bad selling of players? I would say that the reason why Manchester United has struggled to sell players is because the players were on salaries that were too high for the quality of the players, and also they cost too much. So the reason why we couldn't sell Jadon Sancho was because he was getting paid an enormous salary. The reason why Rashford struggled to sell was the same reason. So I think that there is that reason. But also, if you overpay for players, then I think with Anthony it just made it difficult because Manchester United knew they were going to take a bit of a loss selling Anthony. So it's the club's fault. Like that, no one forced us to spend that sort of money on, and no one forced us to hand out those stupid contracts. So I blame Manchester United and the people making the decisions for why we're bad at selling players. Once you've got good players on sensible salaries, it's quite easy to sell them, isn't it? So people want players for nothing. No, I think if the targets we're looking at, like the targets we're looking at, I think are going to be, about we're going to have to pay about market value, aren't we? We're not going to get cheap deals. I think when we start looking at some of the targets, so in terms of like Manchester United's potential wish list, so if you raise money, you've got the Champions League prize money coming in, you've got Adidas sponsorship, Manchester United's training kit sponsorship is going to bring in about 20 million as well. So the money's there and the money will hopefully be spent. Yeah, I agree with G Wolf as well. Big up to you, G Wolf. Yeah, you blame the previous regime of like people making decisions. Once you make crazy decisions, these decisions do hurt you. If you think about Chelsea's decisions at the moment, putting players on very long-term contracts maybe helped in the short term with kind of like spreading the cost of the transfer fees over many years, but it does mean that Chelsea got a lot of players that people don't want to buy, and a lot of players that they can't really move on that quickly. So, Chelsea could be also setting themselves up for some issues as well. But the question is going to be that does this money coming into the club, does this now look like Man United are actually going to be able to spend quite big and say you want 27 million for Agate? I think honestly, I think Agate might actually end up going for something similar to that. It might be like 20 is going to be a base price, but I'd imagine with Agate, he could be more effective in a different league anyway, so we could be seeing a bit of money coming in. So I think this is going to be another hopefully positive, isn't it? That all these players, it's not like we've got all our eggs in one basket either. We've got the players on screen. We've got Xerxes, we've got Binder, and we've got Mason Greenwood moving clubs potentially as well, which brings in as much money as like most of these players on the screen. So this could be a decent windfall for United. And say how much money is coming in, how much will be spent on the club or transfers. So the thing is though, if the owners want to make money, and the owners do want to make money. They're not going to make money by missing out on being in the Champions League. So if you're looking at spending money, Manchester United, under the Glazers, we've always spent money, but we spent it badly. So if we'd have actually spent the same amount of money, but got better players in, or different, like they don't have to cost more, just actually make better signings. And I think most people would look at Anana and think, how much did Anana cost? How much did Lamans cost? And there's a significant price reduction with Lamans, but it's much better quality. So it's not necessarily about how much money you spend, it's about getting sensible players into the club. Like Rasmus and Sesko, kind of similar prices, but Sesko is a lot better football player. And if you look at Agate, Man United could look at João Gomez, they could look at maybe getting Fernandes for something similar if West Ham get relegated. They could look at Hayden Hackney, they could look at Buwadi, Gomez. There's a lot of options that would cost the same amount as Agate or cheaper that are a lot better football players. So it's not about spending insane amounts of money. You don't have to outspend Man City. You have to just get better football players in. They spent a lot more money on Donnarumma than Manchester United spent on Lamans. And I think Lamans had a lot better season. So It's about being a bit more astute in the transfer window, I think, and being a bit more sensible. That I mean, we know the money's there. Whether Manchester United choose to spend it, that's up to them. But we know the money is there because United are going to have. We're probably going to be posting record turnovers in a year's time based on getting back to the Champions League. And we know that Adidas is £100 million a year sponsorship deal. We know that like this training kit sponsor is probably worth about as much as Aston Villa's primary kit sponsor. So the money is like is going to be coming in. And do you think that with this in mind, would Manchester United see Anderson as a good investment? Where if you spend 100 million, then if you think about it, that's going to be for me a player that could be in your first team for a decade, £10 million per year, compared to maybe looking at say Agate who cost us like about 42 million, but 2 years later we're kind of pushing him out the door. So if you think about £10 million per year as a spend, I mean Manchester United could be paying £20 million per year to get this deal done, and we're already going to be getting if we go into the Champions League and lose every single match, like play eight, lose eight, I think we still bank about £90 million, and I think we get about £130 million for finishing third in the Premier League. So if you factor that in, despite being disappointing a year ago, we kind of had revenues of about I think £665 million, and compared with someone like Aston Villa, who's about £380 million, I think Newcastle's about 350. So our turnover, despite being pretty disappointing, and despite Aston Villa having Champions League football a year ago, our turnover was similar to Newcastle plus Aston Villa. Like it wasn't that far off being those two clubs combined. And if you think about how much money Newcastle can spend or Aston Villa can spend, like United should be able to make these figures work. And with Champions League football, we're probably going to be overtaking Liverpool, I think, in the next year. Like we dropped below Liverpool. I think we might be third in the league now or fourth in the league behind Arsenal, City, and Liverpool. But the only reason for that is Champions League money. Once we get back into the Champions League, I think the figures will take care of themselves. And if the Glazers want to make money, which what they do, then they've got to get back into there. So let's have a look at some of the comments as well. Believe it is terrible. Well, we're going to find out in a few days' time, aren't we, regarding this one? So I'm saying, surely we get 104 million. Now, based on this, that Man United will get, like, we should be able to bring in, if you replace, and if you imagine that you replace, I saw someone at the start of the stream said, what if we don't sell Anana and we loan out Anana, but we sell Xerxes? If we sell Xerxes instead of Anana, you just add £15 million to the price. That Anana's available for £20 million. Xerxes would be at least 30, so at least 30, 35. And I don't think anyone's going to disagree with those sort of figures. You're going to look at it and say, no, the money's there, isn't it? This is the first time, probably. When was the last time Man United sold a player for? I don't know, like Rasmus Højlund's gone for 38 million. When was the last time we sold anybody? I'm just trying to think. Last season, we pretty much loaned everybody out. The year before, I think that the only deals I can remember are like Garner, Alvaro, Mason Greenwood was about 25 million. That's probably the one we sold. I think we sold Wan-Bissaka for about what 12 or 13. Scott McTominay was he about 20, 25. So we haven't sold many players for much money, and that's going back for a lot of years. So Fernandez won't be going to the World Cup, so we could get that deal done first. There's one game to go, and apparently, according to sources, this was put out there yesterday that apparently West Ham need to raise 100 million. They've got some financial issues, and actually, my co-host last night went into the details of like there's a few reasons why West Ham need to raise money, and they will get some parachute payments that will help a little bit, but they've got some underlying debt issues, which losing the Premier League money is going to mean they start looking at their squad. They're not going to sell players ridiculously cheap because they do actually need to raise a decent amount of money. Apparently, they're still pushing that they want to get a lot of money for Fernandez. And luckily for West Ham, then there's some big clubs interested. I'm questioning whether If they can get the sort of money they think they can get, I'm still thinking that West Ham get relegated, and I know West Ham are trying to put out the information that they don't have to sell players cheap if they get relegated. I'm not sure if that's the case. I think that there will be a different price. Like most people think there will be a different price for some West Ham players if they get relegated. West Ham are trying to say that's not the case, but it does put them in a weak negotiating position. That if they're in the everyone, everybody will know that West Ham do need to sell players. The question is going to be what's a fair price, and I think for Fernandez, he's not going to go to the World Cup, which is a disappointment for him, and also Belieber's not going to the World Cup. Tonali's not going to the World Cup. So if United are looking to try and do some deals where it might mean that they don't have to worry about a player saying that I'm not going to do a deal till after the World Cup. So potentially Fernandez is something they can move on. But maybe we should look at trying to do that deal. And I think the first point of that is apparently Fernandez said yesterday, or there was some sources saying that yesterday that Fernandes wanted to join Manchester United. If he wants to join Manchester United, then we should look at trying to get that deal, at least get the deal started so that then other clubs are not going to bother with Fernandes and we can kind of work out the fine details about the price later. If we get Fernandes agreeing to join Man United and pretty much ruling other clubs out, then at least that's the groundwork done. And then it doesn't really matter how long it takes to negotiate the deal. We can do that. But I think in terms of Anderson, I'm speaking to Forest fans. I think with Elliot Anderson, it's pretty much we either get him very quickly or City get him very quickly, or this might drag out most of the summer. I think there's definitely an advantage in trying to get the deal done quickly. The difficulty is going to be like how much does he cost? Like, is it are Nottingham Forest in a position where effectively they can just wait and just hopefully that a big money comes in, and it might be that they look at that strategy. I think there is going to be significant movement at Manchester City as well. That if you've been following the story about Manchester City, then Pep Guardiola is going to leave. Maresca's come in. There's a lot of links with Enzo Fernandez moving from Chelsea to Manchester City. Potentially, if that happens, and we don't know what's going to happen with Rodri, but potentially that means that Man City are not necessarily in for another midfielder at that sort of price. How much is Enzo going to cost from Chelsea is anybody's guess. I mean, he was an expensive signing for Chelsea. They're not going to be taking a really cheap deal. Presumably, actually, Enzo's probably still got like at least 4 or 5 years on his contract. That Chelsea contracts are very long, so it might mean that he might be expensive as well. So if City are going to spend very big on one midfielder, maybe they're not going to be getting another midfielder. That could be part of the situation. As they once the last, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of things. If you remember the story I was talking about a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of it was about Nottingham Forest and Anderson, and it looked like Manchester United or Manchester City were not really actively putting out too much information about the player or about trying to sign the player because their Forest had a lot to play for. They were in a relegation fight a few weeks ago. They were in Europe a few weeks ago, and I think at the moment that there's loads of interest in Matheus Fernandes, and there'll be interest in Bowen, there'll be interest in Juve as well, and there's potentially other players at West Ham that people might be looking at. But I don't think they're going to wait. I think they're going to wait until the last day of the season. So we've got a few days until Sunday now, and I don't think we're going to see. Yeah, they're in a relegation fight, aren't they? Like so, a serious relegation fight. So I don't think we're going to see offers coming in because that would be a bit distasteful, wouldn't it? But also, no one knows exactly the circumstances of the contracts. One thing that is and that has been known is that I don't, it might have been Ben Jacobs or it might have been another journalist that they did reveal something about a contract. I can't remember which player it was, but they posted something about a player's contract saying that I think they revealed a clause, and I think in revealing a clause, this might have been coming from Forest. It might have been. I think it might have actually been a Nottingham Forest player, but I think that the owner of Forest actually was going to press charges and try and sue them, trying to prosecute them. So I think when you read information about potential clauses in contracts, I think just the I have noticed that the language used now is very vague, like deliberately vague. So I think if Ben Jacobs is talking about, and I think Ben Jacobs did actually touch on Anderson's contract and say potentially there was a different price for if Forest got into the Champions League or if Forest got relegated, there was potentially different prices, or there may be some release clause, and there may be a cheaper price for Matheus Fernandes if they get relegated. But I don't think anyone knows 100% because the clubs are quite mindful. They don't want this information out in the public domain. So it might have been Ben Jacobs that said something, but I'd be not skeptical, but I'd just say that we don't know regarding this one. And welcome to Don as well. Good to see Don. I say, why would any selling club want a deal wrapped up quickly if multiple clubs are chasing the same player? So it makes no sense. No, if you're I think the only thing that can change things is if a player comes out and says I'm only going to join one club, then other clubs are not interested. The question really, I suppose, is will we actually see any sort of bidding war for any player? Like from a club perspective, from Nottingham Forest perspective, if Manchester United offered 90 million and Man City offered 100 million, Forest are taking Man City's offer. Now, the weird thing that's happened recently is if you remember Benjamin Sesko, Newcastle offered Sesko more money. Newcastle were offering, I think they were offering Leipzig actually more cash than Man United as well. But Benjamin Sesko flatly turned down Newcastle and decided to go to Manchester United. So I'm not sure if that's going to happen now. Is Elliot Anderson going to just take the best possible contract? And yeah, because that's probably is going to be a more deciding factor than whether Man United or Man City offer the most. I think for Forest, clearly there's no incentive to get the deal done quickly. If Anderson has a good World Cup, which everyone's expecting, the price is not going to go down. The only kind of thing that might make it quicker is if Anderson actually came out and said, "I want to go to," and said one of those clubs, then maybe something happens. But I don't know if he's going to. Honestly, I can't even guess what Anderson's like preferred choice is. I know people say, "Oh, he's going to go to City," and loads of people kept saying he's going to go to City. And I don't know. It's that there's a few things that are changing at City. It might be that there's a different. It might be something different. Who knows? I'm saying Newcastle sources have dismissed talk of Lewis Hall and Man United as speculative. It is speculative. Like it is speculative at this point, isn't it? And Lewis Hall has apparently been open to a move. That's what people were saying. But again, this is not the same as agreeing terms or significant progress. But regarding this one, I think with Newcastle, it depends on the sources, but there's going to be lots of sources on either side. Let's be honest. If Newcastle want to sell Lewis Hall, then they're going to also put out that sort of information, aren't they, and say that he's not going to be leaving, or they don't want to sell Lewis Hall. I don't think, but it's something that like Lewis Hall might look at Newcastle and decide to leave. That's all I'm saying. But is Hall a boyhood Newcastle fan? I don't know. I mean, does it matter if he's a Newcastle fan? Welcome in the madness. Welcome Kate to the chat. So, do any of our targets have release clauses? So, as far as I know, they do not have release clauses. But there is, like I said, there is potential. There is a potential for some of them to have. Like it was kind of speculated on probably in January. I think Ben Jacobs said something in January. So there is kind of like people thinking that maybe there is a release clause for Anderson, or maybe there is an agreement that depending on, Forest didn't get European football, so there may be a lower price potentially, but we don't know that. That we'll have to find out what happens. If they got relegated, I think people were expecting there to be a cheaper price for Anderson, but we don't know either. And I think that there was a story about a month ago that said if if West Ham get relegated, Matheus Fernandes is available for 34 million. I can't remember where I read that, but since that came out, I think like a week later, it was about a week before West Ham came out and said they wanted 84 million for Fernandes. So if you can remember when that was, it was like a bit earlier than that. But no, it's definitely there probably is like some sort of clauses in some of these contracts because there seems to be like more complexity in a lot of contracts than there used to be. And Nottingham Forest is a team that they did definitely have some weird contracts. But I don't think the information might be known, but I don't think it's in the public domain, put it that way, because I don't think they want it to be like mainstream knowledge. So if someone says they know, they probably don't know. and it's probably a bit of speculation at the moment. But so if Villa lose tonight, does it is no, is it guaranteed there's top five places that I didn't know like I thought it was that top five were definitely going to get Champions League. So you're saying that if Aston Villa lose, Liverpool could miss out on Champions League? I think Aston Villa are big favourites in that match, by the way, so I think they are going to win it. But if you're looking at say that, then I don't know. I think the bigger threat could be Bournemouth actually. If Bournemouth win the last game of the season and Liverpool, I don't know if like Liverpool need to lose, but Bournemouth could overtake Liverpool anyway, so Liverpool could finish sixth, which no, it would be probably a bit of a disaster for them. Like if they're looking to try and recruit certain players, like if Liverpool don't get Champions League football, do they can they sign Adam Wharton? Is that going to be something that happens as well? But also let's get so you're prioritising not just Premier League proven Northern football players. So I think England have got five spots in the Champions League anyway. I think that's going to be a done deal. But get Anderson and Wharton. Let's sign every Northern out. This is Bilal. We can try. Bournemouth can no longer catch Liverpool. Is that true? I thought it was like quite close, but maybe they needed to win that game then. Because I thought Liverpool they lost their last game, didn't they? So no, so it looks like Liverpool are going to get Champions League football, unfortunately. But yeah, 3 points difference. So Bournemouth are 3 points behind Liverpool. Bournemouth need to like have a six-goal shift, and actually maybe a seven-goal shift. Right? So okay, so it looks like unfortunately Liverpool are going to be fine. They got Liverpool got Brentford on the weekend at home. And I think we got Bournemouth have got Forest away. I can't see there being like 2-4 nil wins there. So yeah, it looks like it's a done deal, unfortunately, for Liverpool getting Champions League football. Oh well, it's a shame, but never mind. Yeah, their goal difference is terrible, unfortunately. No, so do you think for people that just joined the chat, then I put the main talking point for today's stream. Manchester United looking to sell these four players to raise money, and then do we think this is going to be? Is this going to make the difference between Man United offering that we're gonna have to spend a lot of money on Anderson? The question is going to be like what's pushing the price up? Because I'm not sure that I think with Manchester United that we're going to find out if the player we're not going to make an offer until Anderson says I want to join Man United. That it's the same as like Belieber said he wanted to join, and I think with too many, no one knows for sure. And I think for people saying that, I think someone said why is Cake not there as well, and why is Tonali not on screen? That this is just examples that at the moment, like Manchester United's main target appears to be too many or Elliot Anderson. I think other targets would be Fernandez on there, Belieber's probably on there. I think Tonali is definitely on the shortlist, but I don't think he's going to be. He's not kind of where he used to be, is he? I think Tonali's got he's very expensive, and there is potentially other options out there that are better value for money. Put it that way. But yeah, Marinakis threatened libel action to the sports media company representing Morgan Gibbs White. Okay, so I thought there was a specific case because I think that there was some sort of clauses in his contract. So I'm guessing that that might be relegation linked as well. So Morgan Gibbs White, top quality, he's been a very good player recently as well. And this is quite recent. This is going back to last transfer window in the summer. So this is like August 2025. So there are some. I think with the contracts the players have got, there is like strict confidentiality, and some of the things that are pushed out in the media, they might be guesswork. They might, some of them might be known, but they have to be very careful because owners of clubs do not want this information in the public domain. So I think since then, if you watch Ben Jacobs on any stream, then he'll say very what's the word he'll use quite ambiguous terms. He'll quite often say there might be, there may be, it's thought. He won't say anything categorically positive about knowing about a clause. So if people say, because the obvious question is, if West Ham get relegated, can Man United get Matheus Fernandes for a cheap price? Most people think you're going to get a lower price, but no one knows if there's a clause in the contract because legally they're not allowed to know. And West Ham are pushing out this message that is going to be very expensive. I think Anderson has got some clauses in his contract that if Nottingham Forest got relegated, I don't think they're going to get close to the sort of money they think they're going to get for Anderson at the moment. And there could still be a clause. There was rumored to be a clause that missing out on Champions League football, which has definitely happened for Nottingham Forest, could maybe lower the price a bit, but only if a team in the Champions League wants to buy him. So Man United, Manchester City, both got Champions League football. We had this conversation in January actually, where we said if Manchester United missed out on Champions League football, this could mean that some of the players on screen we have no chance of getting. So without Champions League football, we have no chance of getting Anderson. We have no chance of getting too many. We can probably sign Belieber, and we've probably got a reasonable chance of getting Fernandez. Although if Arsenal are interested, and there might be serious interest, then I guess we wouldn't be winning that battle either because Arsenal, having just won the Premier League title, would probably be a much better option for Fernandez. As it stands, there's still a strong option if they want him, and Paris Saint-Germain are always going to be a big option as well. So yeah, it's always going to be a bit of a battle, but at least we're kind of in the right. At least we got the Champions League situation sorted. So so yeah, I think one of these things we've done badly is we bought the wrong quality players, didn't we? And the madness, but your name End the Madness. Would you change it if Man United actually start doing good deals? Is your name linked to Man United's bad deals? Because some of the deals we've done have been absolutely crazy, haven't they? The amount of money we've thrown around. So maybe we're looking at a situation now where potentially we start doing better deals. It takes a while though, doesn't it? If you do some good transfers, it takes a while to see the benefit of this. So we're probably now getting the benefit of buying Dorgu 18 months ago. We're getting the benefit of signing Aiden Heaven again, like a couple of Januaries ago, and we're getting the benefit also of like signing players like Cunyan and Wemo. And I think it takes a bit of time, and like Sesko and Lamans was instant impact for me as soon as he came in, much better than what we had before. So no, it takes a bit of time, and doing a few good deals, you kind of notice bad deals immediately, but the good deals sometimes go under the radar a little bit. I remember people were like wondering why we're signing Aiden Heaven, thinking another academy player, and like Dorgu, is he going to play? So yeah, it takes a bit of time. I'd say the stats we put up last night was interesting, shows us a lot better out than Tonali. I think when you look at it, Tonali's like an all rounder. He's like decent at a lot of things, but if you're looking for players that maybe excel in some aspects of the game, then there's better options out there. So for me, when you're looking at Tonali, and okay, maybe in a Newcastle team that his role would be different in Manchester United. So sometimes these numbers can go up and down. But I think if you're looking at it depends what you want Tonali to do. If you want Tonali to be deep and be winning his duels, winning back possession, his numbers are just not close to someone like too many. His numbers are not even they're nowhere near Belieber's numbers and Anderson's numbers. So if you want someone that's going to be winning the ball back, great in duels, I think there's much better options than that. And if you're looking at sort of I think progressive passes as well, chance creation. But Tonali's not doing lots of that either. So, I mean, there's no doubt he's a good player. But I think when you look at it in terms of like what these players are capable of, I don't know with Tonali. He feels like an expensive option. And I think there's if you're going to go down that route, I think there's better ways of spending the money. So the good thing about the contract is there's at least two copies. Um, do you think there's like I suppose they have to be careful, don't they? I think once the news is out there, then I don't know what the rules are regarding this one. If there's like a not, if there's a confidentiality clause, then you have to be very careful. I mean, I've worked in places in the past where I've had to sign a confidentiality agreement, and I've worked in a place where someone actually got sacked for talking about some things we're working on with someone else that worked at a different company. So these are quite enforceable, and it depends on it depends on the severity of what information is in there. But yeah, we're talking about a lot of money here, aren't we? So it could potentially be something that people do take seriously. I mean, Ben Jacobs, he's a journalist. He doesn't want to he doesn't want to get sued by because he doesn't need to talk about clause. He's going to get plenty of appearance money going on different channels as it is. So Jacobs doesn't need the drama, does he? Of that, it could be though for a football player. then you might happily leak the information to try and actually force through a move. Do you remember this the drama last season about Gyökeres and his gentleman's agreement? And apparently there's an agreement between Wharton and Crystal Palace that he's available for 60 to 65 million. The idea with being behind this one was that I think if Gyökeres stayed a season, they'd let him go for a certain price. And I think with Adam Wharton, it's the same sort of thing. If you stay for an extra year, then you go for a cheaper, like a price of which you can definitely get a move. So I don't know. It makes you wonder: is there like a lot of clauses in these contracts where, and to keep a player happy at the club, you go right, just you know, get us the put maximum effort in for the next 12 months, and then we'll set a price for you that means you can definitely move. So it seems that might be a bit more common than people realize. But no, it's interesting to hear when you see that there's probably we're talking about people spending tens of millions of pounds on players, aren't we? So the contract's probably going to be covering all sorts of things. I think people used to be obsessed by like win bonuses, goal bonuses, or like for Alan Shearer's contract, there used to be lots of obsessive things about that one, didn't there? I would say Tonali, yeah, Tonali news has gone fairly quiet. I think it might be down to that. Apparently, there was something in the media recently. I think it's going back to like Milan, and I think it's talking about some sort of scandals. I'm just wondering whether there's like a bit too much drama for Manchester United, so there might be some. It's a bit like even Tony. Like you look at him and think, right, he's a good player, but then there is like kind of the off the field issues. I think United are looking for like really clean players in terms of. I think we're looking for people like Lamans that come in, no drama, just get on and play football. So if there is going to be some like off field issues that might be distracting to the club or the player, I think we're kind of moving away from that as well. So I think that's where maybe Tonali would actually be, yeah, maybe he would be on the radar again. But at the moment, I'm thinking the only reason I'd see Tonali trending again is if too many stays, Anderson goes to City, and Fernandez goes to PSG, and I think suddenly Man United might go, actually, we need to get someone in. So no, it's difficult. You read that Camavinga is more likely to leave than too many. I think Camavinga is. Doesn't Camavinga have like a lot of injury issues? So I think that if you're Real Madrid, Tchouaméni is one of your best players. Like, is going to be a top quality player for France in the World Cup. So if you're Real Madrid, of course you want to keep Tchouaméni. That the only reason this happens is if Tchouaméni effectively says he wants to leave, and Real Madrid might look at moving players on to bring other players in. So I don't think Camavinga is remotely considered by Man. Am I right in thinking Camavinga's got some injury issues that I think a lot of people might be thinking of, like confusing too many and Camavinga sometimes? Because I think Camavinga was missing a lot more games, whereas I think too many, he's regularly starting games. So let me jump into the chat. If anyone's got any thoughts about how much money you think Man United's going to spend, what if it, because the transfer window's not even opened, and wow, that's a lot. How much money are we actually going to spend, people think? Like last summer, we spent, if you add it up, I think we spent about £200 million just over on three attacking players, about 80 million on Lamans. So you're probably looking at about, I know, 225 ish. That I think we might have spent some money on. I'm trying to think who else we signed. Did we sign a Roscoe then? Or I think we might have spent a little bit of money on some players that maybe we didn't hear much about. And I think we might have signed. Did we sign someone from Southampton that rings a bell? I think we signed some like very young player as well. So we maybe spent about 225, 230 on four players and some prospects. But do you think this is going to be the season where could we actually spend 300 million? Like, could we spend 200 million pounds on midfield and then effectively reinvest the money from player sales, which for the first time in ages is going to be decent, and maybe spend 100 million pounds on? I get the feeling Man United are looking for a left back. And if they can get a left back for like, I don't know how much that we'd spend. You see like Trafford being talked about, Kadioglu, Diouf, Lewis Hall. I mean, we're linked to quite a lot of left backs at the moment. So maybe we look at spending on left back, and then you probably question, all right, how much money is actually available for a left winger. Maybe that depends on Xerxes being sold. So I think what we might see is I've seen a couple of stories recently, and this could be the one actually. Was this the one that we signed? Was he like 16 years old? Okay, so it's not too bad with that one. No, but when you're looking at this, then so it might be that Manchester United sell these players on screen. We also like Binder goes, Malacia goes, Sancho goes, and maybe it's going to be. I get the feeling it's going to be we get a left back, and if Xerxes gets sold, which I think is likely, we use that money with whatever money's left over, and that's kind of our left wing budget. We did, we did apparently say we had the money to buy Semenyo, and Semenyo was 65 million. So presumably we've got 65 million for this that sort of position, like an attacking left wing. So I think we've got the money there. But in terms of like trying to say how this fits in, this effectively is Manchester United spending about net of about 200 million, maybe 250, and then getting midfield sorted, probably getting a left winger, probably getting a left back. But all these signings we're talking about are going to be quite expensive. Like there's no cheap signings on this list. So this would be five quite expensive players. And for me, I think getting quality is important, but it does mean that maybe the loan market is something they might be looking at as well because we're not going to have loads of money. Krupi has the option to represent Portugal or France. Yeah, who'd you go for? I suppose if you're Krupi, do you look at it and go, hmm, actually that would be quite interesting. So looking at some key stats, so surprisingly Wharton stands out compared to a lot of the others. So passing ability would be a perfect complement to Koemenu. I think you could actually look at it and say if you took Wharton and took Belieber, then Belieber's defensive work with Wharton's passing might be like a quite a good combination. I think when you look at the numbers, like this season, Belieber in duels and winning the ball back has been incredibly high. Like, I think he's actually quite close to someone like Tiermany in terms of like winning the ball back and duels and things. But and if you look at someone like Anderson, Anderson's good at everything. But no, I think one of the things that United are looking at is what would be a good partnership with like Code Mainu, but also, Mainu's playing alongside Casemiro, so some of the things Casemiro does, Mainu's been complementing him quite well, but maybe Mainu's going to be, stepping it up a little bit as well, because Mainu's going to improve over he's 21, he's going to be improving over the next few years as well, so it might be interesting to see how his numbers change over the next couple of years, because he will probably be getting better passing wise, getting better defensively, positional awareness will improve, so I think when you look at players like this age, and you can look at sort of stats comparisons, you will see like I think with like Caicedo, you see the same kind of like distribution of like if they're good at passing, they'll always be good at passing. If they're good defensively, they will always be good defensively. But sometimes you see the percentages just going up a bit. And I think we might see that with Mainu. I think we might start seeing more distance passing. You might start seeing better results in duels as well as he's like more physical. So I think these numbers will ultimately move up a little bit. I would say yeah, they spent big, but they didn't spend well, did they? So I think I think Man United can spend big, but I think when we're talking about spending big, I'm not talking about kind of throwing money on players that you're not sure of. So the big spend is going to be as sure thing as possible. That's what it's going to be. So in terms of spending big, like when you look at the players we're talking about, there's no players here where you think how are they going to cope in the Premier League. Like you go like Fernandez, how's he going to cope? How's Anderson going to cope? How will Tonali cope, etc. So yeah, there's so many players that we're linked to that are so easy to scout because we watch them week in, week out. We know what they can do. It's going to be a bit like Cunha. Like we knew Cunha was a good football player at Wolves, and we know that he's capable of stepping up a level, and we're seeing that this season. And for me, it's like a bit of a low risk deal. You could argue with Liverpool, then maybe Kirkes was a bit of a surprise because he hasn't done particularly great. But I think the way the team was set up, and you had Mo Salah and you had Trent, I think sometimes you look at relationships on the pitch and think that Liverpool had a few good partnerships and a good relationship on the pitch last season, with like Mo Salah being dropped and Trent moving on and other things happening. we just thought it just wasn't as effective, was it? So bringing in Ekatike did all right, but Isak not really, um, and had some other issues. And then getting Florian Wirtz in hasn't really worked, if they're honest. I mean, they can say he's improved, but it's disappointing for the amount of money they spent, isn't it? So this is what we spent last summer. So last summer we spent £228 million. Thanks for the stats. Who did we sell last year? Like for 61.6 million? I honestly can't remember who we sold. Um, if I blanked it out. Oh, we sold Anthony, didn't we? Did we sell? We must have sold Greenwood the year before. But no, so we spent about now big up to you, Cake. We spent about say net spend last summer was quite low compared with our other clubs. So 166 million net spend is pretty low. And I think maybe also it's the first window for ages where we actually got some decent value. I think when you're looking at the player sales this season, then 61 million last season, it's got to be at least, right? I put 104 on the thumbnail, but if you look at adding Xerxes to the list, it could be like 130, couldn't it? So it could be like an extra, even if you consider that we could spend an extra 60 million on top of what we spent last year, and I think financially we're in a better position as well. And do you remember that Man United said that the budget last year was in line with like Europe getting Europa League football. So the budget's going to be going up. Everybody knows the squad is not big enough. So that's why I think you need to look at how much money we can spend. I think it's going to be close to 300 is my guess. And if it's not, then I think we're going to be a bit disappointed with this one. No, it's just an example, Gregory. But what I'm bring up to you, Gregory. Now it's just an indication, isn't it, that spending big doesn't necessarily get you what you need. But I think Liverpool did things that too quickly, and they moved on players that were still effective a bit too soon. I mean, Man United, we're losing Casemiro, but I think most people acknowledge that over the next few years, Casemiro won't be as good as he was the last 4 years, and the version we got wasn't as good as the prime Real Madrid version years before as well. So yeah, these players are already levels above that player you mentioned, and the other player I won't mention that we got from Dortmund. No, these players are already levels above those ones. So you think that we're going to be selling Agate first too? I think Agate goes to Italy. I'm not sure the Turkish league is particularly um, appealing for him, but this is kind of a guess, isn't it? I think he goes to Italy. I think he's going to be an effective signing for them, and I think it's the same as Xerxes. I think Xerxes goes to. I don't know if he's still linked to like is it Roma or Juventus, but there's definitely interest in Xerxes. You think Juventus tried to buy him a year ago? We probably should have sold him then. And say United stand keeps saying 150 million spend in the summer. They must be talking on. They must be talking about just midfield, are they? Because if Man United say they can buy Anderson and you deduct like I don't know 90 million away from that total, there's literally nothing left, is there? So I think 150 million pounds might be potentially a midfield spend. But to be honest, every single transfer window Man United pretty much roll out the "we've got no money" propaganda, and everybody knows they got some money. So this like no money thing is like a bit nonsense. So let me have a look at these figures. So yeah, Greenwood was like 26.6 million. So I thought it was about 25. McTominay 25 million, and then Wan-Bissaka 15. These numbers add up to more than you said then. So that's what 50 million for McTominay. Are these in euro? Like Wan-Bissaka 15 million. Camberwala. So if Hannibal Melbury was actually that, then that's not. I know he was in the first team at Burnley, but he's not particularly great. So no, some deals did get done. I think with Camberwala, I thought there was a buyback on that one, but I thought Camberwala actually looked okay for Man United. So I'm not quite sure why we sold Camberwala. He actually looked like a decent player when he came on against Liverpool. But no, so you could look at this and say like the most expensive player we sold last year was Mason Greenwood. The most expensive player we're going to sell this year, actually, that's quite similar to Greenwood's quite similar to Rashford money, isn't he? So McTominay, you could probably say that's going to be similar to Agate money, and then the other three signings, I think Xerxes would cover that. But no, Anana for 20 million, maybe that gets done. I think if we're going to look at these deals, then probably the big one is that it's probably we might have got lucky that Napoli get Champions League football because that pushes um, Rasmus Højlund to Napoli and gives us £38 million. The rest of the deals, I think, about market value, isn't it? That Rashford's going to go on a big salary, but he's going to be 26 million, and I think all the other players bring in a decent amount. So I think it's good news for Man United. So Lucky Singh says we've already got £200 million in the bank. I think most people know that Man United can spend if they want to spend, and it's going to come down to whether the owners actually want to. If you want to transform the team, I would say that I'm not going to say there's like incredible urgency, but at the moment, if you look around the league, Arsenal have won the Premier League. Like you know how we used to look at it and say, right, imagine like this is like say you can see my hand. This is kind of like 100 points Man City, like 90 whatever points Liverpool. Arsenal have got what 82 or something. The difficulty in winning the league feels like it's come down a bit in the last year or two, and it feels a bit like the main thing now is consistency rather than being an amazing world class team. Manchester United since January actually do have quite a lot of consistency. Like our results have actually been better than Arsenal since January. So if you factor that in, I think we could be looking at potentially, I'm not saying we're in a title race, but getting this transfer window right this season might be more important than any other season because it could be that whatever happens with Maresca at Man City, no one knows how that's going to work. I hope Slot stays on at Liverpool because I don't see that improving particularly well. And Liverpool have got some expensive problems at their club as well that they haven't really fixed. They haven't really replaced Mo Salah, and dropping him just made the team worse. So they got some issues there, and they look a bit broken at the moment. Liverpool look defensively in massive problems. They need to replace Van Dijk, probably with Konate. They probably need a new goalkeeper because Allison keeps getting injured. So defensively, Liverpool are kind of falling apart a bit, and it hasn't really worked out getting Kirkez in the back four either. So it feels a bit like one of the like we should be closer to this one. So well, I don't want to say that we're going to win the league, but I think we must be getting closer than we have been. Like if you look at it, City could be weaker despite spending money. Liverpool could like feasibly be just the same as they are this season. Chelsea, I don't see how Chelsea improve significantly. And do Arsenal improve? Like Arsenal could improve, but maybe winning the title this season for Arsenal might have come just in time because there might have been some players at Arsenal that were thinking about moving on that might now stay because they got over the line. So they won a title at Arsenal. They don't need to jump ship to win a trophy. So that could be very important for that club. That's what I was thinking. And it might make it more difficult for if we're fighting against Arsenal for a player, it might make it slightly more difficult. But what do people think? So I'll go for a few comments, and there will be a live stream tonight. I'm not sure 100% what time we'll do that. There is a game, obviously the Europa League finals on at 8, so maybe a 7 p.m. stream if people are around for that one. I'll have to see. Otherwise, there may be like a short a short kind of stream. So, oh, this is like last year's money. So this is like the 60 million. So Garnacho 40 million. Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, it's good, isn't it? And then Anthony 21.6 million. That was a massive loss. But we do have a 50% sell-on clause. Although, let's be realistic, I don't see Anthony going for insane money. Mason Greenwood, 5 million received as well. As a plus sell-on dividends, 15.5 million combined profit clause triggered by Alvaro Fernandez, Alanga, Max. Yeah, no, there was definitely a few there, wasn't there? Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that Arsenal peaked and then dropped off. I think with the second half of the season felt like a bit of a struggle for Arsenal, and it felt like teams worked out the best way of playing against Arsenal. So that's all I can hope. I just hope that that's going to be the case. But yeah, we don't know if that's going to be the case either. Signing Anthony and giving him a ridiculous wage should have been a sackable offence. It should have been. I don't know who was the person that Who was the guy we sacked? Was it Woodward that did the deal for Mason Mount? Like we should have sacked that guy 2 years earlier, and we should if we'd have just employed a sensible manager instead of Eric Ten Hag a few years ago, maybe we wouldn't have this that nonsense in the transfer window. We could be significantly up there. I feel. Say last summer, yeah, last summer I thought we finished sixth or like sixth or seventh. To be honest, Gregory, I thought something similar. I think this season, to be honest, this season like we will do a prediction stream, and I'll get a few people on. We'll do like a group stream for this one. But when it comes to next season's predictions, it depends on like of the on the screen now. It depends how many of these players you can see now. Which ones of them are wearing a Man United shirt, if any? If none of them are wearing a Manchester United shirt, then I don't know. It's gonna. I suppose the best case scenario then would be who would we have? Maybe we'd have Tonali, Angela Stiller, and who else is there? Probably not Wharton. Yeah, I don't know. So maybe it would be less exciting. But if any of the top row plus Fernandez is wearing a Man United shirt next season, I'm not saying we should be talking about winning the Champions League, but we should certainly be looking to win a trophy. Like you don't have that quality of a team and don't compete to try and win things. Like we'd have a team that's much better than Chelsea, in my view, and we'd have like strength over most areas of the pitch, wouldn't we? If we can kind of fix midfield and protect our defense a bit more, I think we've got a I think we're on the upward trajectory, aren't we? So it's a question of whether we back Carrick with the right signings as well. Yeah. So yeah, in the madness, you called like top four. So if you're calling we're going to win the league, we will do a stream as well. But we should get top four. I think that should be achievable. And then it's going to be just a question of like how close we get to winning a trophy. I think we could be. Do you get the feeling that we could be best case scenario? We carry on like we did since January, and best case scenario, we're at least in a title race. Like for if we can get past Christmas and get through the group stage of the Champions League, and we're actually in a title race, I think that will be a significant improvement. So I feel like we did quite well second half of the season, but if we can do it from the start, and hopefully we can get a deal like even if we got someone like Anderson late on in the window, I think he still comes in and is effective for our team. So I don't think it matters too much, but we don't want to be doing too many deals too late. 29 likes. Do you think if we can get like a couple more likes on the video and if people are able to share the stream, according to like YouTube, sometimes I get these stats. And last week there was 56 shares, like 56 shares on the channel. So during live streams, the the stream that we're doing got shared 56 times. So if we can try and like boost that number so that every time we do a stream, it's like shared like 10 times or something, then maybe it will help. So it's a question of is it working better? Not really at the moment. Not really. I think at the moment the channel doesn't really get promoted by YouTube. So if we're able to share the stream so we can just get more likes. So I'll give you the numbers. We got 56 shares and I think 8 hypes over the last 7 days. So that's roughly what I don't know. It's about 8 or 9 shares per day. So if you can share it, it just does help a bit, and it just generally help a little bit grind YouTube in the right direction because there's a lot of people doing they're putting a lot of effort in, and it'd be quite nice to see it try and get back to where it was a few weeks ago. Yeah, if you click like and share, then I don't know if it works, but you on some channels when you click like, it actually turns into a football. I have seen that on other channels. I don't know if it works on this channel yet, but it does. And also, we're trying to get to 1K before the transfer window opens, which feels ambitious, but a few weeks ago we thought it was achievable, and then that would actually help as well because that would then allow me to do a few things more on the channel as well. It does kind of give more sort of content creator help behind the scenes, which would be useful. But if anyone's got like a final question, then please get it in. I'm going to try and keep streams a little bit shorter, as we will be trying to do 3 streams a day, so we can't make the live streams as long as they used to be. But we will try and do. There might be some short content coming out as well, potentially early morning. I'm just working on a few things behind the scenes to try and kind of prepare for what we're going to be doing when the transfer window opens and also the World Cup opens. There's going to be a lot of a lot of channel streaming. So we want to try and make sure that we can give people content that they want. So if you got some thoughts on what you'd like during the transfer deadline day, so not transfer window and the World Cup, then just leave a comment on the video. I think we're going to be doing a lot of watch alongs to start with because people are going to be watching the games as well. And panic polls will definitely push us to 1K subs. So yeah, there's no chance, there's no panic yet. There's like not quite yet. I mean, the transfer window hasn't opened yet, so we won't be doing a panic poll. I might be dropping like a maybe we can do a weekly panic poll and see what's going to be happening. Um, who was the last player we signed from Brighton? I don't know who is it, Bilal? If you know, I'm not sure. Is there an answer? I know who might be the next one if we're looking at that one. No, Brighton are a bit of a bogey team, aren't they? Yeah, don't forget to hype the video and don't forget to share it with your friends. Even if they're Liverpool fans, they can just come in and listen to like I don't know, a better football team discussing their deals. But I'm going to head off. Unfortunately, it's not very bright standing where I am, but I'm going to have to go and do a few things and get some food. But make sure you enjoy the rest of the day. I'm going to try and do a live stream a bit earlier tonight than yesterday, depending on my organizational skills. But if you see something trending you think is worth covering, we'd probably be hammered like the Deadwood situation. But if you see a player that's been discussed, you think would be a good forum for debate, let me know, and we will get involved with those ones as well. Big up to you, Malps. Cheers for getting involved. I read that very quickly and thought you were like liking it while before you even woke up, Gregory. And I was going to say, if you smash the like and share it before you even wake up, Gregory, that is the kind of dedication we need. That is kind of the kind of this is kind of what we need. This is the way that we're going to progress. So big up to you, and, and cheers, Rob. Thanks all the moderators on the channel as well. Great show and great. Thanks for supporting the channel, and thanks everybody that's viewing as well. If you're a new viewer and a new subscriber, thanks for getting involved and welcome to the community. I'm hoping to be live 7 p.m., but a lot depends on how organised I can be and what news is out there. But then, guys, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll catch you guys later.